We are back, continuing on what happened with this masterpiece. But no joke, the game is actually fun to play, and being a story guy myself, I a lot of the times prefer the story than the gameplay itself. Previously on Garten of Banban. Quick summary on what happened so far. The unnamed protagonist goes on a search to find his missing child in the once prestigious Garten of Banban. As we know from any mascot horror game, the children always get it the worst. Here being no exception. On a fateful day, children in the kindergarten go missing, with one selfless parent being the protagonist deciding to go and find his child. While in the kindergarten, he gets tricked by the Red Devil, Banban himself, getting into some trouble with some of the mascots. Seeing how resilient he is, the Red Devil believes he would be a very useful ally, which makes him befriend the protagonist. The protagonist learns about the horrifying experiments the kindergarten had been running in secret, experimenting with a mysterious element known as juvanium, an element identified by its most notable characteristic, its green color properties, making animals and humans morph together to create monstrosities. The intentions of the organization are not very clear at this point for what they wanted to do with the children, so the parent continues going deeper into the sinister place in order to rescue his child. Well, the burning question is the child actually still alive? What has happened to the children and what were the intentions of the organization? Hopefully we'll find out about it and no more mascots are thrown at us. The story continues with the protagonist evading an angered Tomataki and Kamataki hybrid who managed to survive the fall from a platform on the last installment. It doesn't take long before the protagonist gets knocked out by Sheriff Toadster, a new mascot who is the Toad Sheriff in the town. Sheriff Toad asks the protagonist if he's come across several mascots, including the Jester, who we're about to meet.
Now your first task is very simple. I will ask you yes or no questions, and you'll answer them using the buttons on your left and right.
Despite the less than pleasant first impressions, Sheriff Toadster seems like a nice chap who seems to be concerned about the protagonist's well-being, only if he didn't give him a concussion to begin with. Sheriff Toadster takes the protagonist to Queen Bouncelia, the purple kangaroo with a crown, who proclaims herself the queen of the kingdom, which probably is the facilities down under, accordingly having a British accent to go nicely with a royalty.
I am Queen Bouncelia, the ruler of the kingdom.
Despite how ridiculous this all seems, with Queen Bouncelia literally having a throne surrounded by gigantic barrels of juvanium, she unveils important information about the lore. She mentions how many people before the protagonist came down to find their children, with all of them failing, and since then, only the protagonist has been the one to come down again. So the question is, how long has it been since the children went missing? Because by the sounds of it, how Queen Bouncelia has adapted her new role of the new ruler seems like it's been a while. She also talks about a mysterious crash and screams, which might be when the incident happened. Queen Bouncelia herself seems to have been a parent, saying how she is a worried parent, so possibly her child went missing too. She then orders Sheriff Toadster to find parts to the elevator and get it up and running so the protagonist can go further down in order to find the children. Meanwhile, the Toadster explains the Jester, who used to serve under the Queen, has now gone rogue. The Jester is of course no other than the new mascot with a double-sided face, who can use his biggest weapon to bring destruction to the kingdom of Queen Bouncelia. Is that what we're supposed to call it now rather than a kindergarten? How did we even get in here? I feel like a few genres are getting mixed up here. The biggest weapon is nothing but making Queen Bouncelia laugh.
What did the train conductor say to the kangaroo? Hop on!
Which would lead to whatever sinister things are in her stomach pouch to be released and wreak havoc. But isn't that what jesters do though? Making the royalties laugh. So the jester going rogue decided to become funny actually, as he wasn't funny beforehand? It's all getting kinda confusing, but really interesting at the same time. Finding a letter, one of the employees talks about a close encounter with the large entity at the bottom of the organization who is seemingly called Zolfius, according to many comments I got on the previous Garten of Banban videos I made. There seems to have been a crash followed by screams, which led to the people vanishing or dying after that, leaving the organization abandoned, left with the living mascots. Using a transport system, Toadster explains how he has been protecting the queen ever since he was discarded down under after the organization didn't find him to be useful anymore. As we saw in a previous letter, a sheriff whose role is to catch bad guys is not a good example to set, as there aren't any bad guys to catch to begin with. It would also create some conflict of interest. That's why he bonded with Bansalia and found her to be a good person, so he vowed to protect her. Coming across a wall painting, we see Jester being referred to as Bitter Giggle, a half-green, half-purple monstrosity. After a close encounter with Bitter Giggle, with Sheriff Toadster saving the protagonist, they retrieve a part to make the elevator functioning again, going back to the safety of the kingdom. The protagonist soon finds a case update report on Sheriff Toadster. It reads on how he's a mix between human and a toad, a human who was obsessed with Western movies. That led to him adopt a new identity of being a sheriff, but he took it too far, being hostile towards humans and children, considering anyone outside of Banban's gang a criminal. However, this doesn't really explain how he is not hostile now and much more gentle than the rest of the mascots. He even protects the queen from the other mascots, with several wanted posters put up in different parts of the facility, which means he must have changed somehow, becoming much more friendly. Down in the infirmary, we see a familiar face, no one other than the Red Devil, Banban himself. Unlike last time, he's calm and harmless, explaining that he was not in control, changing to his alter ego, the hostile Red Devil. It's really hard to trust Mr. Red at this point, considering we were betrayed twice before, and if not for a psychotic Jumbo Josh smashing Banban, the protagonist would surely be dead. There also stays the Stinger Flynn, who is apprehended, blaming the protagonist for making it get this far. He proceeds to show the protagonist a vision, which might be a memory, where the mascots have a heart-to-heart on how they can't get past sorrow and how their lives and futures have been collectively destroyed.
Sorrow.
Not again.
How is any being able to move past constant sorrow in a world like ours? Sometimes I feel like we're all just doomed forever. We each have our plans and goals, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Nor can it undo the past or the previous misery.
Just then, we get none other than Choo Charles coming to the mix and wanting to kill Banban, but Nap, being a spider, tries to calm Charles, as both are spiders and probably understand each other in a spider way, which leads to Charles putting Banban down with an explosion ending the vision. I really don't know at this point. The protagonist then continues on to find other parts to fix the elevator, accompanied by Banban. He introduces himself as Osman, someone familiar we read about being a doctor, and someone who requested the organization to limit the number of cases, but regardless, his wish was not fulfilled. Going to the Bitter Giggle lair, it's depicted in a note how he had an identity crisis trying to fulfill his role as the jester, yet failing to be funny actually, and being sad due to that. He seems to also have two different personalities, one that writes and cites poems, and another who tries to crack jokes. Taking Mr. Kebab with them, Banban gets attacked by Nab, who defends himself and the protagonist, knocking Nab out, but in the process, he gets injured himself, saying that he can control his angry alter ego, seemingly genuinely wanting to believe in that and want to be a better person. Being incapacitated, the protagonist carries on alone without Banban. Going back to the kingdom, all the mascots seem to have been apprehended and contained within different cells, which leaves only few mascots on the loose. Mascots such as Bitter Giggle, the biggest of all, Zolfius, and now If Cannon. And not just the collab insert, probably the hostile Choo Charles, and possibly Tamotaki and Chamataki. The cells contain Opelabert, Jumbo Josh, Banbalina, and all the others. The sheriff, with his real name being Josh, explains how it hurts him seeing all of his friends now transformed into monstrosities, having lost their minds and having turned into such beings. Friends who were once kind and compassionate. Going to another part of the facility, the parent finds a case update report about the queen, Bouncelia. The subject, being a mix between a human and a kangaroo, seems to have developed certain creatures within her pouch which are unsafe to be let out. Apparently, certain reflexes relaxes her, preventing her from keeping the pouch shut. Hence why the jester making her laugh could be very bad and open up the chance of her releasing these creatures. Soon a worried parent just trying to find his child faces the Kittysaurus, a mixture of a cat and a dinosaur which seems to be very hostile, hence why it was discarded down in this level. Panicking for his life, the parent narrowly manages to defeat this monster and continues on to find the letter. It's soon revealed what the true intentions of the organization with the children were. Hey, it's hard to do what we want to do without speaking to each other in private for a suspicious amount. What I don't like is having to sometimes leave our messages at this floor. I feel watched down here. I have collected the data of all the children currently enrolled in the kindergarten and left them at your desk. I've marked my preferred genome donors, and you do the same on the sheet. We can then exclude any students that aren't marked by both of us, and then from the smaller pool of candidates, we pick one to proceed with. So, this letter essentially confirms the children were enrolled and certain ones were chosen as candidates to be experimented on. The extent of the experiment is not unveiled, and what they really wanted to do with them is not clear either. It could be even feeding the monstrous entity known as Zolfius, or due to the sensitivity of this information, it's possible that they actually wanted to turn one of the kids into Zolfius itself. That's why they were going down on this level to be secretive. With seemingly no other hostile mascot to create obstacles in the parent's way, apart from the jester, he goes on to fix the elevator and finally meet his child. Someone who has been risking his life for this entire horrifying journey, facing such monstrous entities. Finally, the worried parent faces the jester, who actually explains my biggest issue with his existence, which I mentioned before. He explains how he was designed to make people laugh, yet because Queen Bouncelia had vicious creatures in her pouch, he was discarded off and prevented from doing what he's supposed to do, to make people laugh, as that would cause the queen to laugh and let loose the creatures. This clearly upsets the jester, who goes rogue and tries to become a top-notch comedian, low-key giving Joker vibes.
Like a bug to a zapper!
I won't lie, I thought the dinosaur would finish you off. But if trapping you will get you out of my way too, then who am I to complain?
I'd tell you a very fitting joke, but
You humans just never seem to get them.
the closest people to me denied me what I was made to do.
People who were genetically programmed to laugh at my every joke!
They cited some end-of-the-world
Scenario where whatever's in the queen's pouch escapes if I make her laugh. But I'm not buying it!
He reveals he wants to make the queen laugh in anger and resentment, leaving the protagonist trapped as the dinosaur failed to kill him. The protagonist soon after manages to get out of the room that he was trapped in, going to warn the queen and protect her. As soon as he gets to the kingdom, however, it's already too late, as the jester is already there accompanied by the kitty dinosaur. Lucky for the queen, the little beak, the chick Opelabert, jumps into the Giovannium barrel and becomes a large monster who wrestles with the dinosaur. Meanwhile, the jester still remains, trying to make the queen let out at least a slight giggle. His alter ego, Giggle, seems to be apologetic and wanting to stop Bitter, but no matter what, Bitter is a lot stronger and takes over.
What did the train conductor say to the kangaroo?
Hold on!
That was terrible.
His banger of a joke makes the queen laugh uncontrollably, letting all the naughty ones out, the creatures who no one seemingly can stop. Just to pause here real quickly, I gotta admit that the voice acting has improved a lot more. The emotions that the queen, the sheriff, and the jester express are just fantastic, especially I would say the jester. Continuing on, fixing the elevator, the sheriff alongside Stinger Flynn and the parent all go down in order to find the queen's scepter to return all naughty ones back to the pouch and stop the queen's madness. He explains how he let all the contained mascots go to be saved, yet taking Flynn as his vast knowledge could be useful. So, is Choo Charles canon in the story? Well, it's really difficult to say as we know Garten of Banban doesn't take itself seriously, so they could potentially introduce a branching plotline connecting the lore of Choo Charles to Garten of Banban, but that would be very hard to do in a sensible way. There also was a crash that the Queen and Banban talked about, with a letter indicating what could actually have happened. One of the employees mentions how Zolphius, a discarded large monster, could be the culprit of it all, putting an end to the cruel experiments the organization was running by seemingly killing all the people involved. In the next part, we will most likely see much more of the Jester, who in my opinion had the best voice acting by far, so I'd be interested to see more of him and his backstory, which seems to portray duality, bitterness, and giggles. Alright folks, that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to stay tuned by hitting on the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your host Star, and I will see you on the next one. Have a fantastic day.